Actors getting in trouble with the law is seen as somewhat trivial these days, but there's something a bit more peculiar about a voice actor getting locked up. Like when the voice actor behind Squidward gets a DUI, it kind of feels like Squiddy himself was hitting the bottle from behind the wheel. Today we'll be looking at a handful of bizarre cases involving voice actors behind beloved cartoons, committing some rather unusual and at times heinous crimes. Let's begin. The Yogi Bear Police Standoff. It's undeniable that Hanna-Barbera has created some of the most iconic cartoon characters in history, with one of the most prominent being the easygoing, happy-go-lucky Yogi Bear.
Careful, Yankee Doodle. A guy can get hurt with one of those things. Ain't it the truth? And the truth hurts.
First introduced in the 1960s, Yogi was originally voiced by Daws Butler.
Well, I like grits a little bit.
You're moving your lips. You should be able to take some kind of therapy for that and try to control it. You're embarrassing me.
Yogi Bear and Huckleberry Hound are only two of dozens of animated cartoon characters whose lips move when Daws Butler talks.
Unfortunately, Butler would pass away from a heart attack in 1988, with a replacement needing to be found. This is when Greg Burson, a then up-and-coming voice actor, came into play. While he started his career doing minor roles in commercials, he got his big break in the late 80s, when the new Yogi Bear show was created. It was meant to be a spiritual successor of the original series. Burson had even been directly trained by Butler himself before his death, serving as a near-perfect substitution for the guy's voice.
It's sure cold in here, boo-boo.
It's not that bad, Yogi.
Maybe not for you, Boo, but I can't take one more winter in this freezing-tight cave. What I need is a nice, warm, snuggly bed.
And the clout that came with being Yogi Bear would open up a new floodgate of voice acting opportunities.
Now that looks like the beginning of a beautiful friendship. But what I don't understand is why anybody but me would want 18 carats anyway.
He became a sort of default stand-in, leveraging his experience in cartoons into other voiceover work. He landed a role as Mr. DNA, you know, from the little animated DNA guy segment at the beginning of Jurassic Park. Yeah, the guy was going places.
A DNA strand, like me, is a blueprint for building a living thing. And sometimes animals that went extinct millions of years ago, like dinosaurs, left their blueprints behind for us to find.
While at the time it seemed that he would continue on this trajectory towards larger and larger roles, all of that would come to an abrupt end in 2004. In May of that year, police arrived at Burson's house after being alerted to a possible kidnapping. According to the New York Post, two female roommates came out of the house and claimed that Burson was holding another woman hostage. This was concerning because Burson was also armed. This initial call escalated into an almost 6-hour standoff with authorities, getting so bad that a SWAT team was deployed. Eventually, Burson surrendered and was arrested on the spot. He was reportedly under the influence of alcohol. It goes without saying that this incident completely ruined the voice actor's career. It was enough to scare away any would-be employer that was in search of a voice actor. According to Wikipedia, the last role that he ever did was a security guard in a Looney Tunes short titled My Generation Gap.
Nobody gets in without a ticket.
And this is really all there is after that instance, so it's pretty clear that this dramatic situation caused him to lose his career. Him losing his voice acting career only exacerbated his alcoholism. Over the next 4 years, he would continue drinking as he became more and more depressed, eventually passing away at the age of 59 from what's been described as complications from diabetes and arterial sclerosis. Mark Evanier, known for his work on the cartoon Garfield and Friends, was a colleague of Burson and commented this on his blog regarding his friend's death. Quote, "If I ever had the idea that drinking was something a person could just stop doing by choice, it was well rebutted by watching him battle it. It was a vicious, self-perpetuating cycle. He lost work because he drank, and that depressed him, so he drank more." Overall, it's a sad story of a man who was destroyed by his addictive vices, a stark contrast to the many colorful characters that he portrayed. While Greg's passing from alcohol-related complications is indeed tragic, it does bring me some solace to know that his voice work as Yogi the Bear will live on forever and provide entertainment and happiness for many young people to come.
Oh, hey there. If you guys are anything like me, you gotta have a YouTube video to watch while you're eating. And wait, if you're watching this video, does that mean I'm your YouTube mealtime guy? Well, it's truly an honor. While I have you here, I'd like to talk about today's sponsor, Cook Unity. Cook Unity offers batches of weekly gourmet meals prepared by our country's best restaurants and chefs and ships them right to your front door. Cook Unity meals arrive fresh, never frozen, and they're super easy to prepare. Just pop them in the oven or throw them in the microwave for a few minutes and you're ready to eat. One of my favorites from this batch had to have been the meal I had yesterday, the Jam Down Jerk Chicken and Roasted Plantains by Chef Arthi Sampath. The chicken was perfectly cooked, tender, and the plantains and this sweet yet spicy sauce in the mix there, it makes for a crazy jerk-style chicken joint. Just absolutely delicious. And this Mexican bowl that I've been feasting on is killer as well. The Mexican chicken bowl with cilantro, rice, and fresh guacamole by Chef Andre Mendez tastes amazing and is high in protein. 47 grams of protein and 520 calories of food is not too shabby. Which brings me to something else that's great about Cook Unity is they have tons of meal option plans to choose from. Keto, vegan, low sodium, high protein, you name it, they got it. So to make sure that you guys have plenty of meals to eat while watching YouTube videos, let's check out the link in the description. Go to the link in the description now to try out Cook Unity and get 50% off your first order of chef-made meals delivered fresh to your door. Just click that link below and use code WavyWebSurf50 to try it out.
Squidward gets a DUI. SpongeBob is without a doubt one of the most beloved animated franchises of all time. Now, while the leading character is obviously the Sponge himself, Squidward has also served as one of the series' main staples. His often sour mood and depressing outlook resonated with many adults who tuned into the show. And of course, Roger Bumpus, the voice actor behind this character, was critical in not only Squidward's popularity, but the show's success as well.
SpongeBob is my favorite friend ever. Not! So come on down to the Krusty Krab. I don't know why, just come on down, because I need the money, or he needs the money, or he needs to pay me the money. Anyway, have a wonderful day.
In addition to his work on SpongeBob, Bumpus has also been quite prolific in the film industry, both in live action and with voiceover roles. While he's managed to maintain a relatively clean reputation for the majority of his career, this would change after an altercation with authorities. In January of 2016, Burbank, California police were called after being alerted to a vehicle sitting in the middle of the road. And when they arrived, they found the voice actor leaning on the side of it. When confronted, Bumpus allegedly showed numerous signs of being under the influence of alcohol. According to the LA Times, he not only failed the sobriety test, but also blew twice above the legal limit on the breathalyzer. He also apparently stumbled multiple times and was clearly unfit to drive. This led to the obvious conclusion that Roger had been driving drunk and he was arrested soon after. The Huffington Post stated that he was released on a $15,000 bail the next morning, with a media frenzy ensuing soon after. This seemed like a relatively open and shut case, with most expecting Bumpus to accept his losses and continue with his legal proceedings behind the scenes. He soon spoke out, however, claiming that he was being misrepresented. In a statement given to TMZ, the voice actor claimed that he was fully compliant and that details of the story going around were not completely accurate. He maintained that he had been pulled over after being followed for some time, and that he had fully owned up to the fact that he was driving drunk when questioned. It can be assumed he felt the need to clarify this since the initial story told by police made him seem much more incompetent and unhinged. At the time, many following this story wondered if he was going to get let go from Nickelodeon, considering how careful the company was about maintaining a family-friendly image. I mean, you're dealing with SpongeBob here, one of their most valuable properties. While speculation was rampant, this ended up not being the case. It seemed that the infraction hadn't been major enough for the vast majority of people to give a shit about this. It is fucked up to drive drunk. But the greater public deemed this as a lapse in judgment and let him off the hook. And my final thought on this story, if there was a character in SpongeBob to get pulled over for driving drunk, for some reason I feel like it would be Squidward. Mr. Krabs is a close second though. McGruff the crime dog does the unthinkable. In the realm of PSA and public safety advertisements, you would be hard-pressed to find a cartoon mascot more iconic than McGruff the crime dog. Right up there with PSA superstars like Smokey the Bear, McGruff is an American pop culture legend. Gen Xers and millennials watching will most certainly remember this trench coat wearing cartoon detective hound dog, and him urging young people to be safe and help take a bite out of crime.
It's my job to teach you to protect yourselves. Make it your job to learn. Lock your doors. That's an easy way to take a bite out of crime.
An ad agency executive named Jack Keel helped the government create McGruff in collaboration with the Ad Council, a nonprofit organization notable for many classic PSA advertisements over the years. Originally voiced by Jack Keel himself, this crime-fighting canine became an instant hit with young people and would soon become the official mascot of the National Crime Prevention Council. Many short cartoons were made featuring McGruff throughout the 1980s and early 90s, almost all of which have now become iconic pieces of pop culture history.
Learn how to keep your family and your community safe and help take a bite out of crime.
So with McGruff's history explained, we move forward to a more bizarre piece of trivia surrounding this crime-fighting dog. While McGruff is mostly known for his Jack Keel voice cartoon appearances, McGruff is also portrayed in real life by various costumed actors contracted by the government. Which brings us to John Morales, a man known for his portrayal of McGruff in the early 1990s. John Morales was a seemingly upstanding citizen who decided to take up the McGruff mantle after being commissioned to do so back in the 1990s by his local police department in Harris County, Texas. The man would make numerous appearances as McGruff and was beloved by the local community, seemingly dedicated to reducing crime rates, keeping drugs out of the area, and helping children stay on the right path. Morales was seen as a role model to many around the state of Texas. However, in one of the most ironically baffling twists imaginable, the man behind McGruff would be exposed to be exactly what he claimed to fight, a criminal, and a pretty serious one at that. It all started in 2011 after John was flagged down by a police officer after he was caught speeding down a highway in Galveston, Texas. What was supposed to have been a routine traffic stop soon escalated after a trained canine unit detected the presence of drugs within his vehicle, alerting the officer. Yep, the dog snitched on his own kind, can you believe it? After searching his car, Morales was found to be in possession of marijuana seeds. Illegal, sure, but nothing too crazy, right? It gets worse. Well, in addition to finding marijuana seeds, they also discovered an incredibly detailed blueprint for what appeared to be a farm, stashed away near the seat of his car. I'm sure he was just planning on growing some corn. Obviously, these plans and the large stash of pot seeds set off alarm bells. This guy was up to something. Following up on their suspicion, authorities soon raided the man's home, and what they found was shocking to say the least. According to a CBS News report, police discovered 9,000 rounds of ammunition, a grenade launcher, and 1,000 individual marijuana plants inside of the McGruff actor's house. In a betrayal of everything McGruff the crime hound stood for, Mr. Morales had been caught red-handed managing a weed-growing operation that would make even Snoop Dogg blush. This was no simple drug bust. If anything, it seemed like this so-called crime-fighting hound had been gearing up to become a full-on drug kingpin, with weapon stockpiles and everything. Though thanks to the police dog that initially sniffed out this phony friend of the community, John Morales never got his grow-up off the ground, and the former McGruff masquerader was sent to a cell. In 2014, John Morales was sentenced to serve 16 years in prison for his crimes. John, when begging for mercy from the court, would state that he was a nonviolent offender. During proceedings, the judge disagreed, stating, quote, "Everything I read about you makes you seem like a scary person." The disgraced crime dog's defense attorney protested by claiming John was simply trying to support his family through his expansive grow operation, though this defense fell on deaf ears as most characterized the guy as a deranged criminal with potentially violent aspirations considering his guns and ammo stockpile. And so the McGruff the Crime Dog actor was convicted to serve time in prison. As you might expect, many online commentators at the time had a field day with this story, making numerous jokes at the guy's expense while pointing out the irony here.
So it looks like McGruff missed out on catching a criminal that was right under his nose the whole time.
If there's one thing I know about McGruff the Crime Dog, it's that he's against crime and drugs. Let me tell you what happened to him recently. Sentenced last week to 16 years in prison for multiple drug and weapons charges. Oops.
Based on the time frame of his charges and the fact that no updates have surfaced about him, it can be assumed that John Morales is continuing to serve his sentence to this very day, and the real McGruff continues his work informing children and teenagers about the dangers of crime. Recently, McGruff has returned to help keep the kids off fentanyl.
Did you know that fake prescription pills may contain fentanyl?
Keep up the good work, dog. Pocahontas voice actor goes to jail. Pocahontas remains one of Disney's cult classic animated films, right up there with the best of them: Hercules, Mulan, Aladdin, you name it. While it has been criticized for its portrayal of certain historical events, it's still an achievement nonetheless. One of the main factors that contributed to its success was the bringing to life of Pocahontas by her voice actor Irene Bedard.
Well, you know, I know in Pocahontas, she has animal friends, and people ask me that all the time, whether or not, you know, and yes, I am a friend of fur and feathers, and I actually did have a little raccoon who used to come to my back porch, and I swear would eat little, you know, things like he was having tea and crumpets, and should have had a little hat and a vest or something, but yeah, I grew up in Alaska, and I love the wilderness, and I love animals, and so, yeah.
While this film would be her main claim to fame, she would appear in a variety of other works over the span of her career. Unfortunately, behind closed doors, Irene struggled with severe emotional problems, which eventually leaked out into the public eye in embarrassing fashion. The troubles began in November of 2020 in Beaver Creek, Ohio, when the actress was arrested for two separate incidents that took place over the course of a single week. The first began as a domestic dispute between her and her family. As the story goes, she showed up at her ex-husband Denny Wilson's house and began screaming, allegedly hitting their 17-year-old son. This is when he called police, though nobody could have predicted just how precarious the situation would become. When they came to investigate, they were met with an incredibly unstable woman who was clearly under the influence of alcohol. This, combined with her emotional distress, sent her into a frenzy. Police footage of the encounter was later obtained by TMZ. She can be heard in the footage insulting the officers and mocking them for being white, which I have to say is very much on brand to the anti-colonial themes of the original Pocahontas movie.
Hi, white men! Hey, I will just tell you, you're both white men.
Eventually, after it was clear that she was being detained, she started having a mental breakdown, screaming at the top of her lungs over and over again and getting louder and louder.
Quinn! 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 Quinn!
It got to the point where she had to be forcibly dragged out of the home. According to news outlet Page 6, authorities allege that during transportation, she had cracked the glass divider in their vehicle after kicking it multiple times. Her son, despite being the victim, did not press charges against her. When asked what his reasoning for this was, he stated, "Irene is a nice person when she's not drinking." As stated before, this would not be the end of her troubles. Only days later, she was confronted by authorities yet again, after she had another meltdown in a hotel lobby.
I'm the voice of Pocahontas.
I believe you. Where are you gonna go? See, here's the problem. Now you're gonna go to jail.
I'm staying away from you.
No, you're gonna go to jail is where you're gonna go.
I know. It's what I'm doing is staying away from you. and I'm 53 years old enough to know that it's like what I know
Does this work?
in law is I am supposed to be about this amount from you. I don't know what that is.
Stop!
She was then forcibly escorted out of the building and taken into custody for disorderly conduct. She would later be released without bail. At the time, this is where the story left off, with many theorizing that her erratic behavior had been the result of alcohol abuse. Now, if you thought this was the end of things, you'd be mistaken. In 2022, she was involved in yet another incident. This time, authorities were contacted to investigate a woman who was seemingly passed out on the side of the road. This turned out to be none other than Irene. She was just as unstable as she had been before. The Pocahontas voice actor was once again arrested for disorderly conduct. In the time since these controversies, she has picked up a few minor roles, though it's unlikely she's ever going to be touching anything Disney related again. Simba's voice actor kills 2 people. Matthew Broderick is an actor most known for playing the lead role in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which has since become a cult classic. However, it's arguable that he had an even bigger role, that being the voice of Simba in The Lion King, released in 1994. Specifically, he played the voice for the adult version of Simba. Seeing as how prolific he is in kids animation and family-friendly live-action stuff, you would expect him to have a relatively spotless reputation. However, there is one particularly egregious incident that occurred early on in his career, with his actions resulting in the tragic deaths of 2 innocent people. In September of 1987, Broderick and his girlfriend Jennifer Grey were driving along a highway in Northern Ireland while on vacation. According to a New York Times article, the young actor was driving on the wrong side of the road, and this resulted in a head-on crash with another vehicle. The other vehicle had 2 people in it, a 63-year-old woman named Margaret Doherty and her 28-year-old daughter, Ann Gallagher. The incident also left Broderick and his girlfriend hospitalized with severe injuries, though they both eventually recovered. In light of his alleged negligence, he was arrested and charged with the death of Ann, later being released on a $4,000 bond. At the time, his fate seemed uncertain. However, despite the severity of the charges, Broderick would seemingly get off the hook with nothing more than a slap on the wrist, only being charged with the small fine of $175 at the end of things. The ordeal was widely debated, and many were shocked and appalled at the ruling, with a lot of people confused as to why a harsher sentence wasn't given. After all, it was his alleged negligence that resulted in the death of 2 people. While this may seem like a career-ending fiasco, that was far from the case. In fact, Broderick would experience a lucrative career spanning decades following this ordeal, appearing on talk show interviews and starring in numerous movies as if the incident had never happened. However, this doesn't mean it didn't affect him. A 2002 piece from the New York Post details how he felt an immense amount of guilt over the incident, with him stating, quote, "It was extremely difficult coming to grips with what had happened, but in time I felt better about that terrible experience. Therapy helped." The article also mentions that a man named Martin, who was a living relative of the 2 deceased women, eventually forgave Broderick and acknowledged that it had been a mistake, no matter how negligent. This, combined with Broderick's continued appearances in major productions, led to the incident slowly fading in relevance over time. The controversy would be reignited in 2012, however, after Matthew bafflingly agreed to be in an advertisement for Honda. While the commercial itself is innocuous, the connection was still there, with many commenters online taking notice. One comment underneath the re-upload of the advertisement states, "This is like O.J. Simpson starring in a commercial for stiletto knives." Which I gotta give it to this commenter, you were on point. The Martin individual mentioned earlier also joined this conversation that was going on, claiming Broderick was probably not the best choice for the ad. The Honda commercial would eventually be pulled from television, and this would be the final mainstream controversy stemming from Broderick's deadly car crash. But yes, for those of you unaware, the voice actor for Simba was inadvertently responsible for people's deaths. The Charlie Brown stalking incident. Charlie Brown is a widely beloved cartoon figure. For many, it's become an annual tradition to watch the animated 1960s holiday specials that him and the gang were featured in. These Peanut specials are a pillar of American pop culture. Charlie's apathetic attitude and generally depressing worldview, clashing with the joyous holidays in these movies, have provided introspection and comic relief for multiple generations at this point. The character has something of a troubled demeanor, and sadly the same could be said about the person who voiced him. The most popular iteration of Charlie Brown was voiced by child voice actor Peter Robbins, who unfortunately would not be able to maintain his stardom after childhood. While he had some sporadic roles, it seemed that Peter had little interest in pursuing acting of any kind. As a result, most simply forgot about this guy's existence, assuming he had moved on to better things. Unbeknownst to the general public, Robbins would struggle for most of his life and would go on to commit disturbing crimes related to stalking and harassment. All this stuff would come to light in 2013. As the story goes, Robbins had paid for breast enhancement surgery for his girlfriend, a woman named Shauna Kern. It's unclear exactly why, but for whatever reason, he was extremely unsatisfied with how the operation turned out, and he wanted to recoup his finances from the doctor who performed it. After being refused, Robbins flew off the handle. He left messages to his girlfriend threatening to kill her and allegedly threatened to kill the doctor responsible for the surgery as well. This escalated into a physical confrontation in a hotel room, where he repeatedly hit her dog while threatening to kill her if he didn't get his money for the surgery back, allegedly ending off by choking her and running away. While this would be bad enough, according to media outlet Today, Robbins had been arrested in January of that year for attempting to dine and dash. He also stated he would kill the officer involved in his detainment. These two separate situations compounded, resulting in multiple warrants being issued for his arrest. The man was eventually arrested after coming home from a trip out of the country, being charged with 5 different felonies, with one including stalking. He was held in jail with an absurdly high bail of $550,000 due to the severity of the charges. The former Charlie Brown voice actor did eventually plead guilty and was sentenced to 5 years of probation, with him being forced to attend several rehabilitation programs. Sadly, he would eventually make numerous probation violations that once again put him in the crosshairs of the law. Local news outlet CBS 8 wrote that Robbins repeatedly drank alcohol despite being prohibited from doing so, intentionally cut off his GPS tracker, and would skip mandated classes. He was officially re-jailed in February of 2015. During a hearing that took place in June of that same year, Peter completely lost it, claiming he wanted to fire his lawyer and saying that he was now pleading not guilty to all of his previous charges. During one of his outbursts, he stated the following, quote, "You just stick me in jail for 124 days. Do you have a conscience? Do you know I have not committed any crime? You revoke my probation, I revoke my criminal threat. I never threatened this woman in order for it to be a criminal threat. She has to believe I would kill her. I wouldn't kill her. I have never had any violent behavior." This obviously fell on deaf ears, with a lot of people perceiving Robbins to be a genuine threat to society. Somehow, the story would escalate and get even crazier later in the year. In September, it was revealed that he was still causing trouble even from within his jail cell, writing letters offering $50,000 to assassinate the county sheriff. This, of course, resulted in even more felonies being piled onto his already marred public record. District Attorney Brenda Daly was unimpressed with his actions, stating, quote, "He has solicited and attempted to solicit many members through letters and writings to kill the sheriff. He has attempted to intimidate many people. He has acted out in jail numerous times." The NBC article goes on to state that he also vandalized his cell, causing significant physical damage. It's also revealed that during another court hearing, Robbins seemed to not understand what was happening multiple times, further proving just how mentally unstable he was. Eventually, he was officially diagnosed with bipolar disorder, being released from prison in 2019. He did an interview with local news outlet Fox 5, where he detailed some of his experiences. In one story, he recalled that the guards would often knock on the cells, making it difficult for inmates to sleep. He claimed that now that he was through with the experience, he only wanted to spread positivity, even getting a Charlie Brown-themed tattoo on his arm, and stating, quote,
"It's a symbol to me of refurbishing my life. I don't have any animosity towards anybody. I want to write a book about my experiences in jail and prison, and what I have to look forward to. Confessions of a Blockhead is what I'm going to call it.
Unfortunately, this positive energy wouldn't last. In 2022, it was discovered that Robbins had tragically taken his own life at the age of 65. In a statement to USA Today, his agent Dylan Novak commented on Robbins' death, stating, "He was a great friend and the most generous celebrity I've ever met. He needed money more than anyone else at the shows he attended, but instead gave away so much free merchandise because he couldn't stand someone to walk away sad." And well, you made it to the end. Let me know what you guys thought about this video down below in the comment section, and let me know who or what you want me to talk about next. I want to give a major shout out to my patrons. I appreciate you guys. Wavy Web Surf out. Peace.